Awesome.
All right, we're back with another fun episode. We're joined with T this time. We have lots of industry experience in education and bud tending and just kind of general dispensary knowledge as well as just general cannabis knowledge. T, would you like to kind of introduce yourself and let people know who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, thank you, Felix. Hi, I'm T. I've been in the cannabis industry for a little over 3 years now. Been a medical patient since since 2019. Um, and right now I do head a training at a dispensary. I get to talk to Budtenders every week about new topics as well as work the sales floor with them. Um, yeah, and I just wanted to be able to talk to you about my experiences with like teaching Budtenders and ongoing education, stuff like that.
Awesome. I'm a big proponent of education. So I commend those that
Yeah,
are furthering education and not just consuming it like myself.
right.
So in your current like day-to-day thing, what type of new stuff are you teaching bud tenders? What kind of stuff is like kind of going over?
Yeah. So I leave a lot of the power to them. I usually will have a couple different things that I have in mind, and I'll let them vote on what they want to talk about next. But I really try to pay attention when we get new products in, and I see bartenders just struggling to have those conversations because they've never seen the products before. They don't really know much about them. I'll put that in my head as like, okay, that needs to go on the roster of things that we need to talk about.
Is there like certain things that you've noticed, like not necessarily like a brand, but like kind of consistent patterns that bud tenders have a hard time grasping that you kind of have to kind of like, if you know you have a new group coming in, you're like, oh, I need to talk about this because all bud tenders have
Yeah.
this issue.
Yeah, actually, this past Wednesday I did a big training on vape hardware, and the big reason was because, over the past year and a half, we've been seeing new disposables come in, and we're seeing way better technology. We're seeing, universal charging across all of them, and I know that any tender that has good experience knows that the disposable game 2 years ago was not great. So having to kind of break those old thoughts and reintroduce these products, that was a lot of fun. I was able to get a lot of bartenders to be like, "Oh, this is really good. I haven't tried one of these, and I'm actually like smacked right now." And I'm like, we both know if you put oil in bad hardware, you're immediately limiting its success. So stuff like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, having my current role, I definitely have seen like the progress in vape hardware and just kind of the technology that's progressed over the many years that since been following since about like 2016 or so, like 2017, and just like the night and day difference between it feels like
Huge.
caveman technology versus like modern day space technology
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know bartenders in my store are gonna feel a lot more confident saying like, no, no, you can give this one a try. I know it's the same price as a 710, but like you're gonna like it.
Nice. Is
Yeah.
there certain like form factors or flavors or strains or stuff like that that you see like bud tenders kind of gravitating more towards?
Man, it's really like depends on the person, you know? I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it's with everyone, but like there's definitely the groups of people at my store that just love those fruity ones. I love me a good fruity distillate cart. No shame, I'll say it. Um and then there's the people who like, they want it to be that heavy live resin taste. But I see that for the most part people gravitate towards just the larger ones. People are going for those like full gram.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like the convenience and just kind of like the overall deal is like,
Yeah.
I'll don't because I've noticed that a lot of times like cannabis people they also have a wide palette, right? I like fruity stuff, I like gassy stuff, I like this or that, right?
Mhm.
But it's like, what's the best deal I can get right now for myself, or what kind of stuff is like I haven't tried lately?
Yes, exactly.
Do you see any areas where like customers and bud tenders like encourage like splurging versus just kind of like that value buy?
Definitely. Definitely. Let's get a good example. Um, I think one of the big trends that I see at my store is that we have a lot of people coming in every day and they're looking for a gram, and that's it. Um, and they run out of options in like the actual packaged grams. And one of the best things ever is being able to kind of upsell them that like really nice pre-roll that is like pre-ground, and me being like, oh, dude, I promise, open it up. I know it's $3 more, but you're gonna get a brand new strain. Like it's real good. Um, that's one of my favorite go to see. Like yeah.
Nice. That's like a gram of flour that like people are coming in looking for.
Right. Yeah. A lot of our like morning people, they're just coming in, they're getting their stuff before work. They're grabbing a joint, they're grabbing a gram, and they'll just go roll it up.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Just kind of like that. So you guys, I'm sure you have very consistent, like, people that like, oh, there's Jane or there's Jim or there's
Oh
whoever.
yeah. Regulars are the best. Love regulars. Um, One of my favorite things ever is being able to help like a regular when they come in, just like, hey, like I got something that just came in yesterday and you literally hit my mind when I saw it. Like you got to try it. Those are always the best.
That's always a good sign of like a good bud tender and like customer relationship there, because it's
Mm-hmm.
I almost like liken the bud tender to like a sommelier, right? Because like most
Right.
people when they go into a restaurant, they might want to order a bottle of wine or a glass of wine, but when they look at the wine menu, like it might as well just be in French the whole thing, right? Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And so like kind of same thing with like when you look at like all these different strain names and different product names, it's kind of like I don't know what any of these is. So it's
Right.
having those education like for the bud tenders and like the staff there to like not only do they know the product, but they know the product well enough and the customers well enough to kind of pair the two.
Right. And I honestly like that's where I see the biggest struggle is because people do expect us to be like a sommelier when they walk in. They expect me to be an expert on everything on the menu. And let's be honest, those menus can sometimes be 700, items.
Yeah.
And if 700 items, if I'm lucky, I get to try 5 new ones for free every month with my samples.
Yep.
Lucky. It would take me years to try everything, and that's without things cycling in and out. That's without changes to hardware, changes to tastes and edibles, like ingredients. Like it's very hard. It's not impossible because there are ways to, learn and be able to sell anything on the menu without trying it, but it's hard.
Agreed. Yeah, the and like in wine, it's like sometimes almost easier because their batches are so big that you kind of know it. Where in cannabis, like the batches are small sometimes, right? And
So
you get like
small.
this the great batch of the Miracle Alien cookies last time was awesome, but this one the grower got fired or something like that, or they left the lights on or who knows what. And like this batch
Right.
is what happened to this batch, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a hard thing to explain to customers and to budtenders, wait 150 days. It's always new weed. Those grow rooms eventually have to cycle in and out. You'll get something different.
Yeah, that's very true.
Hmm.
So what kind of like trends do you guys see in the market that you guys are like looking to like embrace, or the kind of trends that you're trying to like steer customers away from?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I would never steer a customer away from something that they want. That's outside of, what I believe in. I really just think that there's a product for someone. Um, uh, I've been in the industry long enough to know that I would never pick up a Good News vape to smoke, but that's still one of the most popular ones on in the market, and it's for a reason. Someone's buying them. So, I think really like what I really push our bud tenders to focus on is what are you seeing leave the store a lot? What are you seeing come back with, hey, this didn't work, or hey, I couldn't get this open, and really asking questions to figure out like what they're doing. If they're going to a concert, it's going to change, drastically what I'm going to recommend. So I think we see trends in just like around certain months, we see a lot of edibles sell because it's festival season, and then a lot of joints and stuff. And then in the winter, it's everyone buying a bunch of eights and staying inside and stuff like that.
That's awesome. And it kind of, and I think like being in like I think you're located in the city, correct, in
Yes,
Chicago?
I am in the city. Yes.
So then like getting to see like the seasonality and the fluctuations, like it's very extreme in Chicago with the cold winters
Right.
and hot summers, and then the tourist season, then patio
Yes.
season, and then it's just nope, I'm going directly home to my couch.
Exactly. Exactly. And then yeah, you have your people who come in every day for their stuff for work, but then you have your people who come in every day for their stuff after work, and that's a totally different conversation as well.
That's very. Do you
Yeah.
guys being in Chicago, do you guys see a lot of like tourists and people coming in from out of state like visiting your store?
Yeah, yeah, we do. We get a lot of people with their suitcases. We're one of the first places that they go while they're waiting to check in at their Airbnb. Um, Those are always a lot of fun conversations to have because yeah, we get to really break it down. I think that the key to selling weed is asking as many questions as possible. And we're able to find out like, well, okay, you're in town. Well, what are you doing? You going to museums? You going to a concert? Yeah, stuff like that. And then being able to stock them up. I definitely think that we see a lot more like just disposable vapes that recharge sell to tourists because they're not trying to come back if there's problems,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Those are good. Like, yeah, as convenient as possible for like those
Hmm.
travelers. They don't want to have to go back and get store credit for a store that they may or may not return to again. They're like, I'm here on business. I'm never going to come
Right.
back. I just want one vape, and here it is, like causing a whole like customer service issue. Uh,
Exactly.
that's awesome.
Exactly.
So within your store, do you guys see a lot of do you I mean ancillary sales? I've seen like kind of like the split between some sort of sell a lot of it, some sort of like we don't focus on that. How do you guys do that, and what is like your kind of like training around that?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, like pipes and smoking accessories and just kind of
Oh,
like
oh, okay, okay. Sorry. Maybe I didn't hear you. So truly, we don't focus on it. That's something that where my store is located, there's head shops all around us,
yeah.
and we're in the community. We're not here to go against the community that's already was there before we were. So I don't think our store carries a lot, but I think um, we do have a lot of people ask about it, and I do wish that there was maybe one thing for each category so that we could kind of help with those upsells. Something that I see at lounges a lot. I've been to a couple lounges is where like that's where someone's gonna fall in love with a piece, they get to try it, stuff like that. And I do wish that there was a little bit more hands-on with the process after you leave the dispensary.
That's a really good point. I've been, a weed nerd for many, many years, and have had whole closets full of product or like accessories that I no longer use anymore. And so often I wish I could, like, could I have just use this one time before I bought it? Because sometimes, like, the first time you use it, you're like, this is not good. And then other items,
Right.
you're like, it's the first time you use it, you're like, why didn't I buy this 4 years ago? Like, this is amazing.
Right, right. Like I tend to, my friend will have something and I'll hang out with them a few times and I'm just like, okay, that's in my head. The next time I buy something weed related, that's what I'm getting. Um, I do that with grinders all the time. I'm
Nice.
always looking at people's grinders. What do you got?
Exactly, and grinders are one of like those big personal like purchases. Whether you're not going to go through a lot of grinders unless it's a really bad one, in which case you're not going to rebuy that. Um,
Right.
yeah, it is fun to see that. I was at an event like last year, and I was talking to a couple of my buddies who sell like accessories,
Hmm.
and it turns out that the three grinders I use each came from each of the people that I was talking to, and I was like, "Oh,
Yes.
this is like my three wise men of grinders. This is hilarious. That these
Yeah,
are the three that I use, and
exactly.
here they are."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's crazy.
Yep. So what kind of stuff would you like to see in the cannabis industry? If you're focused on education and kind of like teaching stuff, I'm sure there's some gaps that you wish were filled. What
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
what kind of areas do you think we should start shine a highlight on?
Um, that's a really good question. So the nice thing about the situation that I'm in is that I'm dedicated to this to training my team and to keep that education, these conversations going. Um, I haven't seen that before anywhere else. It definitely helps us. But really, like I find that I've had the most success because I've focused on creating trainings that do more to teach my budtenders how to find the answers themselves than to just give them the answers. I think that um, in Illinois, we're so restricted. We don't have that opportunity to open up jars and like truly learn hands-on, where we have to explain the product to our customer and then they get it at the end. And I learn about it by going in the vault and looking at stuff, and half of it's see-through, half of it's not. Um, and so I'm losing my train of thought in the middle of this.
Just kind of showing the bud tenders the way instead of giving them the
Yes.
answer.
Yes. Teaching them how to fill in the blanks and find context using tools like genetics and terpenes and just like looking at brands' histories and how long they've been growing the strain and stuff like that, if they're growing it in other states. Those things fill in those contexts so that I don't have to have a conversation about every brand that comes into our store or every strain that hits the market. And I know that a lot of dispensaries have their budtenders rely on the menu, and the menu is helpful. It's a fantastic tool, but it can't sell the weed.
Yeah.
And if it's brand new and it puts on the menu and maybe some information's not there yet, maybe the cultivator didn't let us know if it's an indica sativa hybrid. Now we're severely limited on how much information we can even get from it. I think that education in dispensaries should really be focused around teaching that skill of research and how to find the answer.
I agree. I think, and also like, there's so much stuff continually changing within cannabis as well. So if they were like looking for that exact answer for you, they might just be waiting, and then in the meantime, customers are waiting.
Right,
And to your point
right,
about not having like just the whole basically just selling off the menu is like a consumer can also look at the menu, right? If they have questions, chances are at least half of them have already looked at the menu, right? And so
right,
you just like I've always found that annoying, like when you're trying to order something and someone's like, well, let me pull up the iPad. It's like, I already looked at the iPad, or like,
right,
yeah.
right. But it's their tool, and it's like and 90% of the time, it's not the bud tender's fault that that's the only tool that they were given. Well, actually, 100% of the time, really. Um, it we can work with what we got, and we've got seed talents, which are helpful to a certain degree, but also if you don't teach bud tenders to know what information is important, how do they know what to take from it? So sometimes you still hit those walls, and think being an entry level position, you're automatically going to have a little bit higher turnover. So now you're probably relying on senior bud tenders to kind of trickle the knowledge to lower bud tenders, but that cycle eventually kind of runs out.
Exactly. And then it's also like sometimes bud tenders, they get focused on certain things, and then the way that they teach, is like, no, like kind of to your point about like all-in-one devices, right? The bud tender has been here for 4 years, might not be recommending all-in-one devices as much because they had bad experiences when they first launched,
Yeah, they
versus
got
like the new,
burned.
yeah, the first
Yeah,
bud tenders that are like out now, they're like, wait, what are you talking about? These all-in-ones are great because I got to try a couple samples, but if they don't have that firsthand knowledge, then they're just kind of relying off of like the veteran bud tender, and they're like, oh, if he says it's bad or she says it's bad, chances are it's bad, and then it's just kind
right.
of like, no, they're just you know kind of a little bit behind in the technology or something. And I think that's kind of finding the answers. And I think you just hit it really well, is like kind of, if you see a lot of products moving out the door, there's a reason it's moving out the door, and so you can
Yeah,
probably recommend those products to similar customers and they will also enjoy that product.
exactly. Understanding those trends, asking a million questions so that you understand what trends that person in front of you falls underneath, and just like matching. Um, I'm able to sell every product on our menu, and I promise you, I haven't tried a new one in a really long time. Well, that's not true. I tried a couple on Wednesday. I tried some vapes, but other than that, nah, I haven't bought anything new in a really long time, and but I'm still really good at my job because of it.
There you go. Yeah, it is just being able to like use the context clues and just kind of using the other customers as well. I,
Yeah,
I worked at a butcher shop many years ago, and I had like culinary experience and working and stuff like that, but never like working with like cuts of meat and recommending this meat, this cut versus that one. So I kind of always like remember like that as like an early bud tender as well. As like, what do I even do? And so I'd always just, I would hear the older butchers, like they would ask certain questions. Oh, do you like it, tender? Do you like it more flavorful? Do you like it this? And then
right,
based on that, they would give a suggestion. Is like, oh, I don't really know what that means, but I will say the same words as those guys. And then the
right,
customers were happy. And then it's like, oh, wait. And then after a while, you kind of start to pick up patterns yourself. And you're like, oh, wait, this type of person who's looking for discreet, let's not sell them an ounce of flour. Let's sell them some edibles, or let's sell them this. If they're a parent, again, don't sell them a huge big bag of flour unless they're asking for it.
right,
Versus, maybe the younger guy or gal they're telling you, I am going to a concert. I want to roll up a whole bunch. It's like, all right,
right.
here's this, shake for you, or here's this for you if you want to upgrade a little bit.
Exactly, exactly.
Um, Where, like, what kind of products do you personally enjoy?
Ooh, I love concentrates.
Nice.
Love concentrates. Love me my Puffco. Um, but really like anything at the same time. I very rarely get like a sample product or someone will give something and I won't use it. Um, big fan of drinks. Those, you know, you work in the industry long enough, you just need the strong stuff. So those edibles that hit me really fast and the concentrate. Love rolling joints. Really anything. How about
Nice.
you though? How do you like to smoke?
I'm also a big fan of concentrates. If I could, I'd probably just be dabbing all day, on
Yeah.
various rosins and live rosins and resins. And I am not like that discriminatory myself either. My favorite product is, the one that I'm currently consuming.
Right.
So as long as it's as long as I'm consuming something, right? Uh,
Exactly.
but yeah,
Yeah.
definitely like the old I like the torch and banger, like old rigs and stuff like that. That's definitely like my go-to. And then I definitely also smoke a lot of like bowls and just kind of like one hitters, like
Bowls.
glass stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just throughout
Hell
the
yeah.
day, put a little flour in there, rip it, blow it out the window, you're good to go. Um,
Exactly. I'm kind
yeah,
of a lazy stoner, so like long rituals, like I don't, I just get sick of them. So Puffco is easy, pre-rolls are easy, anything
yeah.
easy.
Yeah, exactly. It's I've had friends who not throwing any shade their way, but they're spend 15 minutes rolling a joint or something like that. In the meantime, I was like, dude, I wanted to get high 14 minutes ago and like already be doing something, like
Right,
we don't need
right.
like, yes, your joint is awesome and we're gonna be able to smoke this one for the next 20 minutes, but we could have smoked, two bowls in this time and been like probably just as high.
Yeah, we probably would have been fine. Yeah,
That's awesome.
absolutely.
So do you have any things that you do like with cannabis? Just kind of like do you like to like you mentioned like going to concerts for your customers and stuff like that? Do you use anything in particular for certain things, or is it just kind of
Oh
like,
yeah.
all day every day?
Well, it definitely is every day. Not all day, most of the day.
Yep.
But I'm really what I like to do is I like to find those specific products or those strains that I really like doing for certain activities. And I really just like pair my cannabis with different things in my life. So like when I take my dog for long walks, I just like my little pen and I'll just puff it. And so I have that ritual of like I have my outdoor pen. Um, when I go to concerts, I love to roll big joints that I know can go around the circle a couple times. So I only, I don't hit my joint once. Um, and then I've got like, sleepy time edible routine with my CBN and stuff like that. And then
Nice.
I've got my go-to mocktails for when I play games with my friends and I'll sip on those. So yeah, it's definitely cannabis has made its way into every facet of my life. It's just different ways that I use it.
Nice. Yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah.
I had one of my brothers like a little while ago was staying with me, and I came home quickly from like I was working at the dispensary at the time, walking in the door, hitting my vape pen, and then I get a dab really quickly, and then I grabbed like an edible or something like that, and it was just he was just kind of watching me. He's like, how many forms of cannabis did you just consume like in 5 minutes here? It's like, we got to be efficient here,
Yeah, and not enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, make sure you
Yeah,
pack the to-go bag.
exactly. Oh yeah, my to-go bag's a whole other thing. Yeah. And it's mhm.
So when you're in your role with education, I was just
Yeah.
thinking about this. Do you focus mostly on like the Budtenders, or are you also kind of helping with like the general public and end consumers as well?
That's a good question. I have done some stuff with consumers. So uh my journey with education in cannabis kind of started with packaging. When I became a medical patient in 2019. Felix, when I tell you I haven't thrown away a single container, I haven't thrown away a single container. I can't. It hurts my soul. Um, so I had bins and bins and bins full of glass jars, and I started to reuse them. I just would make them cute, and I would sell them for like $5 at festivals. I think actually you came to Karma Club one time and bought one
Yep,
from me.
we still have them.
Hell yeah. And that was, I would start conversations with people. They would come and they would buy a $5 jar, and I would let them know, yeah, this is all trash. I saved it. There's no, recycling program, and my goal was to try and, get something going there. It still is. It's on my list. Um, but that's where it started, and when I got into dispensaries, it definitely shifted towards Budtenders. But then I got opportunities to do some events in lounges. I did a candle making class that was also a terpene like forward
Oh, very cool.
event. Yeah, so we like built everyone we made three different candles, an indica, sativa, and a hybrid, and I matched the botanical terpenes, the smell of the candles that were, in it with strains and what their kind of levels were. And while we mixed them, I had a slideshow where I talked about the importance of terpenes, and we really just kind of focused on like the olfactory system and how smell is a huge indicator for life and memories and stuff like that. So like, if you smell a lemon candle, you probably don't want to go to bed. It's probably the same with your cannabis. And we did that correlation, and that was really cool. We had a lot of eye-opening moments. A lot of people like, oh. So, and then I did one for 710 where we did a big education session on teaching consumers how to use devices. We had the Puffcos and the Dr. Dabbers and then rigs and stuff, and
Nice.
we let them do it. And then we also infused honey at the same time with like different flavors because 710.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I definitely hope I can do more with the public and branch out more than just, working with budtenders. Hopefully, cultivators as well, and helping them build education for budtenders that gets straight to the point.
Definitely. I am a very big believer in like the olfactory senses, like playing such a big part in like the cannabis experience. And there was, I forget which person it was. If I remember, I'll definitely send you the guy's information.
Yes.
But he was talking about how you can smell a bud and tell if it's indica or sativa just by smelling it. And when you smell it, you can you don't really realize it's like consciously, but like you can, if you start thinking about it, like where do you actually smell it on your nose? And so if
Mm.
you have a really heavy indica, it's really at the bottom of your nose, and you smell it, it smells like really dank and just kind of stays right there. And then if you smell something that's like super high in like a sativa, like a lemonine or limeine or something like that, it will go like straight up into like your higher part of your nose, like almost like into your eyes, versus like that
Whoa.
really sharp, like whoa, like sharp smell.
Hmm.
And I was
You're gonna
on like
have me
a
open up all my jars trying
yes,
it.
you definitely do it afterwards, because you're like right now. I know that you're listening to this, and everybody else listening is like, that's a bunch of bullshit. I was on like a work trip, and like I went to a dispensary with a younger colleague, and like we bought some flower. I bought like a big heavy indica. He bought a heavy sativa, of course, and I was telling him this, and then he was just looking at me, being like, what the hell kind of stoners like science, bro science are you talking about here? And then all of a sudden, like he starts smelling. He's like, oh my, I oh my, I know what you're talking about. Is like, yeah,
Hmm.
like it's like you don't think about it. So yeah, there's like that's something that I think let me know what you think about with after your bags and stuff like that.
Yeah, I will, because I'm curious. And there's always strains that break the rules, you know? I
Yes.
just smoked an indica that was like really high in limonene, like it was super citrusy, but then I smoked it and I passed out. And I was like, okay, well that was an indica. So I'm gonna smell that one next.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then just kind of like those like little tips and tricks to the, you talk to like some growers who've, growing plants for like 20, 30 years. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I can just tell by looking at a plant, what this or that is, like, that plant looks like that mother, and it's just, after being in
That's
cannabis for a while,
crazy.
is, like you just kind of start picking up little things. And then as an educator, just kind of, picking all those like little things in everybody, like gleaning all the good
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and then just kind of regurgitating it and being like, here's all the stuff I've learned.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nice. So thinking about like your crafting and stuff that you've been doing,
Oh yeah.
that's really fun, and like it's always fun to see people doing like creative outlets.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh man. Art's been a part of my life forever. My grandfather was a like a well-known working artist in the city of Chicago.
Nice.
Worked for like all the big major newspapers as like sketch artists. Um, but he really got me into art very young, and I started selling art when I was like 17 or 18. And it's always been like a side hustle passion project. It's one of those things that I have to create because I want to. Cannabis has always been super helpful with it.
Yep.
Um, but yeah.
That's very cool. So do you mostly just do like your like the packaging stuff, or do you have like painting and drawing or other
Oh,
outlets?
anything. I create with anything I can get my hands on. So, I think what you got to see my table once, and I had stuffed animals. I like to make stuffed animals out of felt, stickers, pins. I do the jars, paintings, prints. For a while, I was painting random wooden boxes that I would find at thrift stores and selling those. Um, just if I see something and I see a vision, I will do my best to make it come to life and then just sell it. But it all tends to be very similar style. I like to hit the nostalgic bone. I like things to make you feel like you're something from your childhood, but it's not specific. I don't use characters or anything like that, so it's an eerie nostalgia, and then there's creepy mixed in.
Nice. I definitely picked up on that. That was really
Yeah.
good.
Thank
I
you.
picked up one of your package of misfortune cookies,
Yo,
uh, and I
yes.
thought that that was one of the most creative things I've seen in a long time. It was one of those
Thank
ideas.
you.
I know it's a good idea when I have something that's like, why didn't I think of this? This is so good, you know. And so like I thought that was really good, really a good
Thank
art
you.
moment.
Yeah, for the listeners, they're little felt fortune cookies that have removable laminated fortunes that say the rudest things, just terrible things that would ruin your day.
Yeah, I gave them to my wife as like a Christmas present, and she opened them up and she was just like, "What is this?" And the first one was very rude and not like, like I read that one, the rudest one I read last when I was opening them up just to kind of see them, and she read that one first and was like, "The other ones are funnier." But she said, "Oh," and she kind of got it after. Like, what did you give me here?
That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're rude.
Yep. So do you working with a bunch of bud tenders? I know in the past I've had a lot of like creative coworkers. Do you see that like with yourself and just kind of other people like embracing that creativity in various forms?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like everyone that works at dispensaries has such strong individuality. I think that's something that yeah, that people just look for and that they clock and they're like, you're perfect. But oh yeah, I've got coworkers that are you know uh ink artists. They're working towards tattooing. I've
Oh,
got
wow.
like digital artists. Like they're all like such specific styles. I'm like having issues finding like what medium I would even call them. And then there's people who paint. There's singers. There's a lot of people who are in theater. Yeah, I feel like creativity and cannabis tend to go hand in hand.
Agreed. It's a fun like overlap in that Venn diagram.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice too for customers, especially because like oh man, the people who smoke weed, you can't pin them down. There's so many different types of people who walk in, and because we have such creative, diverse crew, everyone connects with everyone a little bit differently, and there'll be those regulars that come in that are really close with my coworker, but maybe that regular hasn't really, we have never really had like a deep conversation or matched anything, but like they got, a bunch of stuff in common, and it's nice to see that diversity in cannabis.
Definitely. Yeah, I was would say like on the sales floor of a cannabis dispensary is one of like the most diverse places you'll ever see. Like we had literal millionaires saying next to people that we knew were homeless, you know, and then they're on the sales
Yeah,
floor like talking to each other and giving each other recommendations. And it's like, where else would you see this? Like in
yeah,
other parts of life, you know, like very few other places.
absolutely.
Um, so when you're trying to help like your team learn more about like products and other kind of stuff like that, what is like useful information like when you get from like a cultivator or a new group and stuff like that? What makes your job easier?
Well, that's a great question. If you guys are listening, take notes. No, I'm just kidding. But oh, so what's really what I tend to do is I'll talk to cultivators. I'll ask them a million questions, or I'll listen to, their Budtender education, and I take a bunch of notes, and I tend to split them up into like sections. And I would I wish that the information was given to us maybe a little bit more cohesive in the sense of like process. It's really important to know who their target customer is and who they're marketing towards and who my customer is going to be. Um, but then it's also really important for us to know what type, where you're getting your genetics from. Is it all in house, or are there people that you're working with, seed banks you're working with? It's important to know um, if uh, if your cartridges, if it's using botanical derived or cannabis derived, we know that there's a market for both, and that's okay. We just need to know. Um, Edibles, big thing is ingredients. I know a lot of people have vegan and gluten free and dairy allergies, and those are big ones that sometimes a new edible will hit, and it'll take a couple weeks till we can find the answer. If if the labeling, the label will always have the ingredients, but sometimes there's like little things like red food dyes or stuff like that, or um, processes for when you're doing fast acting edibles. If it's nano emulsification, Budtenders have no idea what that means. Stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I've seen that as well, like where you need to use information words like that the budtender will also understand, but also like not dumb it down to the point where it's like useless information.
Right,
You get like those
right,
flyers where it's like, oh, we have 10 pieces, 10 milligrams in a pack, and it's sealed perfectly in a facility like this. Like everybody does that, right? Everybody has to do those kind of things. Like
right,
tell us about your process.
right. So sometimes the education given to us feels like they're talking to a customer. And I wish the conversation felt more like it was like a professional to a professional,
Yep,
because that's what our bud tenders are. They're selling the shit, and they don't need all the marketing fluff. They don't need it. They got
exactly.
questions.
They're like a bud. Like I found like good bud tenders. They don't try to tell what's better than other things because like how we talked about earlier, like I might think a distillate vape is better because it's cheaper, where you might think a live rosin is better because because it is better, but because because that is like a higher quality product and less solvents and this and that. I think the same thing can be said with like just generic products. It's like I don't need you to try to like fluff me up and tell me that this is the best product ever. I need you to give me 3 points of why this one's different, right?
Right,
And I think your point about the customer demographics actually really key too, because you don't want the bud tenders to assume that, oh, this product is for higher end clientele, or this product's only for this. And it's like, no, actually we made a bigger volume, but it's a better deal overall. So like this is actually for value purchasers.
right, right. And yeah, and just like lifestyle, the average bud tender is a very, you know, type B person. And when products are made for type A people, sometimes they're a little bit like, who wants this? This is, and it's like someone not like you.
Yeah.
And that's when a cultivator is able to tell us that, when they're able to tell us this is who we had in mind when we made this product, it's super helpful.
And what kind of like attributes are helpful in that? Because like I find like brands go too deep. They're like, this is for a 27-year-old female who studies anthropology. It's like what?
It's like who
Yeah,
who were you
like
thinking
we
of when
have
you wrote this?
one of those customers out of like 5,000.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like circumstances, I think, is like really what it comes down to. Um, when when these companies are making products, I know that they have an idea in mind of how people will use it, when people will use it. Um, and that would probably be the most helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Or if it's like
I'm
the super heady guy on the staff, he designed this one, or is it like no, the super environmentally friendly lady, she made this one. Like kind of like
Right.
which group, like kind of stuff like that. Maybe not necessarily like male or female because everybody smokes weed, right? Uh,
Right.
but you can say this is a little bit more for an older crowd, or this is a younger crowd, or this is your value shopper, or this is your person who's looking for something super awesome, or who knows what. But yeah, I think you're spot on, just kind of like figuring out how they're going to use it and like generally what type of like niche this person fall into.
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you see any demographics that are untapped right now? Like, do you say like, oh, I wish there was a video game brand, or I wish there was
Hmm.
something?
I wish prices were cheaper. That's about it. But no. Let's see. I do wish that there was more products like Lowell or um Old Pal or like the party packs from Revolution that had a little bit of the process in their packaging.
Yeah,
Um I feel like those are always easy sells. The if you're getting a pack that rolls out like tobacco and it has papers on it already, it's a lot more familiar. And I wish there was a little bit more products that had like if there was a big infused blunt or like a hash hole or something, if it came with a poker, that would be like so cool. Um, if more disposable vapes that do charge came with a little cord, that would be cool too. Like I think so. I think that like I don't think there's like a category that's missing because it's kind of all like I just saw a thing that one of these brands is putting out ice cubes.
yeah.
There's a market. There's something. The market's already full of everything. Everything's already been made, but I think that functionality needs to be mixed in a little bit more.
That's a really good point because like it's kind of I had an art teacher who his whole thing was kind of so what, right? Like people would make up something and he'd be like, well, so what, right? Like to your point, like you have a hash hole. Yeah, but like, do you actually know how the hash hole consumer actually consumes product and what kind of help they actually need, right? Like the sale isn't, I like to say the sale isn't done like when you touched it last, it's your problem. It's like, no, like I want to make sure you're satisfied with it. I'll
Sorry,
get the
give me
fruit
one
for you.
second. Hey, come. But yeah, no, I 100%. So what? So what? It's a hash hole. What else?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the matches that come with the Lowells, like those are nice in a pinch. There's sometimes where someone will buy a pack and then they're almost out the door. They'll turn around and be like, "Oh, do you have a lighter?" I'm like, "There's matches already in there," and they're like, "Sweet."
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. I was talking with a guy who runs a software firm in the cannabis space, and he showed me one of his newest like accessories that he's kind of giving away, just kind of like as a free thing to Budtenders, and it was like a joint case. That's kind of cool, had like a nice thing, and it was all plastic, and I was like, oh, this is
Mm.
actually like, and he's like, yeah, like how many times have you gotten an all metal thing for your pre rolls, and then like you can't go into a concert because you have them in a metal tin, and you have to go through the metal detector, and it's like that actually happened to me 2 weeks ago where I almost got kicked out of a concert because like I was kept on buzzing on this thing. It's like I was the whole time I was wishing I had put them in the plastic container. So kind
Yeah,
of, knowing your end consumer and figuring out, like what actually is going to benefit them, right? Not just trying to, dupe them into buying a product, and turning them into, brand champion.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it makes your bud tenders jobs easier too when
So
brands are
much
like that,
easier.
and it makes it easier to support them.
Yes, absolutely. Because yeah, education it has to happen in the cracks of the dispensary functioning. There's not a fiscal way that you can just set time aside for training without it, hurting, and that will stop a lot of dispensaries from ever doing it.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to find the time in those little cracks, and having that information just here you go, it's ready for you would speed it up.
Definitely. I've even noticed that from like the medical days when, transactions would take, 5, 10, 15 minutes because you're talking there and you're just a little bit, it's just kind of you just shooting the shit, right? And you're just having a
Yeah,
fun time. But there was a lot more patient and customer education back in those days.
yeah,
Um, And to your point, like all the managers would be like, we need to speed up these times. We have a whole lobby full of people, and it's like, well, they need to know the education. It's like, yes, they need to know the education, but we're also here to sell them in retail and stuff like that. And we also have a whole lobby full of people that also need product. So can you hurry up your education, or just educate them quicker, or like just give them a couple things? You don't need to read them the whole, research paper.
Right. Right. And that, yeah, that becomes very hard. It's like, how much do I tell them? And then medical conversations become, yeah, a lot more complicated. I think that those types of conversations have definitely slowed down since recreational has become legal, partially because the majority of our medical patients that came in when the program started are kind of know what they're looking for and know what they need, but
Yep.
also, because most people are just buying recreational now and things are just moving fast and then,
They don't even know what
well,
question to ask.
exactly. They have no idea. Um, they look at the site, they see the information that's given to them. The one thing they're able to compare with one another is THC percentage, and the
Yep.
conversation stops right there.
Yep, exactly. It becomes like a milligrams to dollar conversation, and then that
Yeah,
quickly dictates which path you kind of go on. Sort by low dollar signs to high dollar signs. So
yeah,
sort by potency, and you miss a
yeah,
lot of products and miss a lot of cool brands that way.
exactly. Yeah, the amount of times helping someone at the kiosk and they're sorted by price low to high. They're looking at the first few pre-rolls and they're like, I don't really like this, and I scroll down a little bit to ones that are on sale from a brand that they've never heard of that starts with O. So it's
Yep.
at the bottom. They're like, oh, this looks good. I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
But my job, ends up turning into I'm just scrolling on the kiosk for people all day.
Yeah, it's hard, and like I don't have any silver bullet to kind of fix it. But like when you're to your point, when you're searching on an iPad and there's 12 pages with 25 items on each page, even the most dedicated person who wants to do research, they're not going to get past page 7, 6, because they're just like, all right, this is too much. Then they'll start
Yeah,
sorting by price or by potency, or just by start doing some filters. So yeah, it's just kind of, and then if you're putting on the too high of filters, you don't know what you're doing, and yeah, then you're just like, all right, what's the cheapest, and then it's just a race to the
yeah,
bottom.
exactly, exactly.
As we kind of wrap up here and close, is
hmm
there any last things you would like to kind of give any shout outs to, or where people can find you on social media or anything?
Oh yeah. Well, shout out this. This was awesome. This is my first time doing anything like this, so this is really fun. Um, toxicsugar.art on Instagram, T Downs on LinkedIn, TEA like a cup of tea. Or you'll find me around most events in the city within the cannabis industry. Um, yeah, if you see me, you work for a brand, you want to do education stuff, please let me know. Um, yeah, that's kind of it.
Awesome. I'm sure there's plenty of brands out there who are always looking to connect with educators just for their own brand, also to help educate their store. And I definitely encourage people, if they see your art booth, to make sure you stop by and grab some pretty cool upcycled material as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and we look forward to chatting more.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much.